It's dreary in Buffalo, but it's sunny in Phoenix, where NFL owners and staff are meeting, looking ahead to any changes next season. For Buffalo Bills fans, there are now more renderings of the new stadium, and we heard from head coach Sean McDermott today that he will be calling the defensive plays, with coordinator Leslie Frazier taking a year off. We will hear more from McDermott, but first a look at the latest batch of renderings showing off the exterior of the new stadium and other areas inside. NFL insider Vic Carucci will join us in just a moment, but we begin with Two on Your Side's Adam Benigni, who is live in Arizona, as we mentioned, after getting these big updates. And Adam, it's amazing how just a few new photos really excites Bills fans. So aside from those photos, did we learn anything new about the plans and the construction of that new stadium?
Well, Claudine, basically some specifics, really very timely in the sense of what's going on in terms of the lease. That's the next big and really the last hurdle toward making the images that we're talking about actually come into reality. And we talked with Pegula Sports Executive VP Ron Raccuia here at the NFL owners meetings at the Biltmore Resort in Phoenix within really the last hour or so. And he said Pegula lawyers should be turning over those lease documents to Erie County, if they didn't do it today, by Wednesday. And once that happens, the county has 30 days to review. When the county approves this thing, the state portion, that negotiation's done. This thing gets the green light and shovels can go into the ground with the hope that they can, and the intention that they can open in 2026 in terms of this new stadium. I want to bring in my Sports Talk Live colleague and WGRZ Bills and NFL insider Vic Carucci now as well. And you really get a sense, Vic, when you hear Ron talk about this today, how critical the timing is at this point to hit that deadline.
Yeah, hugely critical in terms of trying to, first of all, be on schedule. And the schedule, as we've heard it, is for this thing to be ready, open by 2026. And that means getting shovels in the ground very soon, like June has been a day or a month that's been mentioned, some date in June. But in order to do all that, of course, the paperwork has to be signed. So maybe the best news we got out of today was hearing Ron Raccuia say if those documents aren't in the hands of the government officials today, he said by Wednesday. Look, I don't want to jump ahead, but I think until we know those have been received for sure, I think that's where we can say, okay, everything is now moving forward. But I am encouraged by the fact that you hear that update that the lawyers have had it, as he said, too long. But it sounds like they're ready to take this next huge step, and that is get these documents moved from Pegula Sports and Entertainment to the government officials.
And he said, Vic, at the latest that should happen by Wednesday if it didn't happen today, to repeat what Ron Raccuia had said. In terms of these images themselves, and kind of one of the talk about things, it wasn't on the agenda here at these meetings in Phoenix, but anytime you see renderings like that, it generates reaction. The Bills do play a London game this year at Tottenham Hotspur Stadium, and that would give Bills fans an opportunity to see a lot of the design elements. There are a great number of similarities as you look at the renderings with the canopy and some of the other design elements that resemble that stadium as well. What's your reaction to hear Ron talk about how communal they want this, both internally and externally, how they want access to be easy, the events level, multiple tunnels, 4 tunnels onto the field, for example, is something they've gotten from some of their studies. What's your sense of what this stadium will look and perhaps feel like?
Yeah, I think there is a definite wow factor that you get even from these renderings, that this is going to be a special looking place and specially designed place, and will answer a lot of the questions that have been lingering, for almost 50 years in terms of this thing, what it's been, in Highmark Stadium, and now a more modern, up-to-date facility. There are a lot of amenities there, and you can sense the feel that it brings. Seeing something called a shout wall, and seeing a scene like this where you've got fans getting a full experience when they're inside, let alone what they're going to get when they're actually there, like watching the games. And I think the whole canopy effect, which you were referencing in terms of what Tottenham Hotspur is going to look like, or is like, I should say, where the Bills will play their game in in England, in London, I think gives you a feel for what this will be. And there will be many fans, I'm sure, traveling there who will get that sense. So it's covering a good portion of fans. I think that's important to note. And secondly, it's going to feel like the kind of thing you are expecting to see an NFL team, a home stadium in 2026, in this century.
And one of the things Rakuya has said, once the schedule comes out in April, they'll actually have an opponent, and there'll be some promotions to that effect of what you're talking about in terms of the London game and how fans can kind of maybe gain some insight in terms of looking at that stadium. Got a couple of minutes left here, and I want to shift our discussion to the team for a moment here in terms of construction. How about construction of the defense? They have a challenge this year, obviously, in replacing their middle linebacker in Tremaine Edmonds, but beyond all of that, something that we had talked about on the show and speculated about, and Sean McDermott had referred to but hadn't confirmed, is the fact that with Leslie Frazier taking a year off from coaching, he is in fact going to call the defense this year. Here's what he had to say at the AFC Coaches Breakfast this morning.
At this point, I'm gonna be the play caller, but at the same time have tons of confidence in the guys that we have around me, that if I need to toss it to them from time to time, I can do that.
All right, Vic, so less than a minute left here, but your thought, I mean, he's taking charge in one sense, he's putting himself on the hot seat in another.
It's challenging for sure because, again, as head coach, that's much more of a CEO type of role, overseeing everything. Now you get into the weeds with calling plays. Your mind has got to be dedicated to that even when the defense isn't on the field, and your attention goes elsewhere. But here's the thing, you've taken away a layer now. So if the defense, once again, disappoints in the postseason, as it has, the call won't be, or the criticism won't be directed toward the defensive coordinator. It'll be directed more toward the head coach, where the buck always stops anyway. And by the way, I think Sean McDermott will be the first to say the buck stops with me.
Yeah, he has said that, and my expectation would be that he continued to. He also talked about the coaches that he has around him, and that if it becomes too much, he'll feel comfortable in turning over some of the play calling responsibilities to one of them. Al Holcomb, the newly hired senior defensive assistant, certainly comes to mind in that regard. Much more. Special edition of Sports Talk Live Buffalo coming your way at 7:30 tonight. Vic, we'll see you then. For now, Claudine, let's send it back to you.